welcome to this explainer. Today we're going to impartially unpack a really fascinating and deeply layered spiritual text. Look, if you're searching for deep spiritual knowledge and a true understanding of how certain frameworks view the literal mechanics of the universe, you are in the exact right place. We're going to explore some profound concepts here. We're talking soul consciousness, massive cosmic cycles, and the ultimate return home, relying completely on the rich source material provided. Okay, let's dive into this. Right off the bat, the text hits us with this incredibly striking quote, "I am the husband of all husbands and the father of all fathers." Wow, right? This immediately establishes the authoritative, divine voice of the source material we're exploring today. It's framing the speaker not just as some worldly guide, but as the ultimate, supreme origin of all souls. It really sets the stage for some incredibly deep spiritual instruction. Now, to understand this complex cosmic theology, we've got a very clear roadmap. We'll be covering 1. The Supreme Father's message, 2. Soul versus body consciousness, 3. Devotion versus true knowledge, 4. The cosmic cycle of ages, and finally, 5. Purification and the return. We're going to build our understanding step by step, from the individual soul all the way out to the cosmos. Section 1. The Supreme Father's message. Before we can truly grasp the depths of the message itself, we really have to understand exactly who is claiming to speak in this text. So the speaker in our source is identified as Shiv Baba. The text defines him as the Supreme Father and the Supreme Soul. Now, what's absolutely essential to understand here is the form of this entity. Shiv Baba is described as completely incorporeal. He's an infinite, eternal point of light. And beautifully, within this framework, the text clarifies that both God and the individual human soul are fundamentally the exact same form. We are all just tiny points of light. But wait, this raises a very practical question, doesn't it? If the Supreme Father is just a point of light without a physical form, how does he actually communicate this deep spiritual knowledge to us? Well, the source explains that the Supreme Soul must take an ordinary, old human body on loan. He literally enters this physical body, which the text names Brahma, specifically to physically speak, teach, and reveal the secrets of the world. So there's no indirect inspiration happening here. It's presented as direct, spoken knowledge through an adopted physical vessel. And who exactly is he speaking to? The text refers to his spiritual students as Brahmins, and it uses this incredibly fascinating phrase, the mouth-born creation of Brahma. Let's decode that metaphor for a second. In this specific context, Brahmins aren't a caste you're born into physically. Rather, they're spiritual students who are essentially adopted through the spoken knowledge of the Father. Because the Supreme Soul uses Brahma's mouth to impart this wisdom, those who listen, understand, and transform are considered mouth-born. Section 2. Soul versus body consciousness. Now, what's really interesting about this next part is how it introduces the fundamental problem identified by the entire text. It's an epic internal battle of identity that dictates our entire experience of reality. The source draws a stark, unmissable contrast between two states of being. On one side, we have body consciousness. The text argues that humans experience sorrow and lose their spiritual inheritance simply because they focus completely on their physical, temporal identities. Their physical parents, their bodily limitations, their worldly roles. The ultimate solution, the exact antidote to all this sorrow, is soul consciousness. This means actively identifying as that incorporeal point of light we talked about, constantly remembering the Supreme Father, and through that pure connection, gaining a highly elevated spiritual inheritance. This leads to a beautifully simple yet profoundly deep realization, captured perfectly in this line right from the text. It is a soul who speaks to other souls. Achieving true soul consciousness means you start seeing right past the physical forms of the people around you. You realize that every single action, every spoken word, every mundane interaction is simply one eternal soul playing a temporary part in a massive worldly drama. It's quite a perspective shift. Section 3. Devotion versus true knowledge. Moving right along, the source draws a massive distinction here between how people generally try to connect with the divine versus how this framework says they actually should connect. So, the text draws a really sharp line between two distinct paths. It describes the path of devotion as essentially blind worship.
It points out that devotees build these huge Shiva lingams to worship, simply because comprehending God as a tiny, invisible point of light is just too abstract for the physical-minded grasp. They ask for visions, they beg to be relieved of sorrow. The text views this as stumbling in the dark, loving God, sure, but without a true understanding of the beloved. In stark contrast, the path of true knowledge involves understanding God's true form as a point of light, receiving his direct spoken teachings, and actively purifying yourself to become equal to the Father. The text sums up this contrast with a very striking, poetic metaphor. This knowledge is day, and devotion is night. According to the source material, performing standard devotion, doing charities, and asking for mercy, it's literally like wandering blindly in the dark of night. It is only true knowledge, the daylight, that actually provides the exact, elevated spiritual inheritance that mere devotion can only blindly beg for.
Section 4, the cosmic cycle of ages. Let's see how this all builds as we zoom out from the journey of the individual soul straight into the grand cosmic timeline outlined in these teachings. So the source presents a universe that absolutely does not move in a straight line, but rather in a constantly repeating cycle. It's a loop. It begins with the Golden Age, an era of total purity, what the text calls Sato Pradhan, where the ancient land of Bharat was a literal heaven on earth. Then we transition into the Silver Age, as spiritual power begins to slowly decline. Next up is the Copper Age, the era of duality where body consciousness and separate religions first begin to pop up. And finally, we reach the current era, the Iron Age. The text describes this as a Tamopradhan era of total impurity and sorrow, essentially a living hell compared to the pure origins of the cycle. Now, to sustain that pure Golden Age world once it inevitably returns, the text introduces the esoteric concept of the dual form of Vishnu. The source explains that the spiritual students Brahma and Saraswati ultimately transform to become Lakshmi and Narayan. These figures represent the dual form of Vishnu, symbolizing a perfect, pure balance between male and female energies that flawlessly sustains the heaven of the new world. So the crucial point here is timing. The text insists that we are not just floating randomly in time. No, we are currently standing at the exact critical transition point between the end of the degraded Iron Age and the dawn of the pure Golden Age. There is a profound sense of urgency here that makes this knowledge incredibly relevant to the believer. God, the Supreme Father, is described as acting as a friend and guide in this precise moment, actively building the bridge to help souls cross over from the old, sorrowful world into the new one. Section 5, Purification and the Return. Okay, we know where we stand in the cosmic cycle, but how exactly does a soul cross this bridge back to the Golden Age, or back to the ultimate spiritual home? Let's take a look. The text actually prescribes a very specific, actionable 3-step method for spiritual elevation. Step 1, you must constantly consider yourself to be an incorporeal soul, not a physical body. Step 2, you have to break your intellect's yoga, meaning your mental connections and earthly attachments, away from everyone else in the physical world. And step 3, you must connect your intellect to and remember the Supreme Father alone. This intense, exclusive mental connection is the precise mechanism that purifies the soul and completely prepares it for the return. And for the Brahmins who actually take up this true knowledge, the text outlines some pretty strict responsibilities. They are instructed to do the business of the Father, which means actively helping to purify the impure world. They must give everyone they meet the clear aim to remember Shiv Baba. And crucially, this is a big one, they must completely conquer lust. The text emphatically identifies lust as the absolute greatest enemy, highlighting the very strict requirements of complete purity and renunciation needed to achieve this high spiritual state. And this brings the whole cosmic narrative to its dramatic climax. The source claims that this vast universal play is actively coming to an end. All the actors, meaning all the souls, are continuing to come down to the physical stage. Once every single soul has arrived, the text states that the destruction of this old, impure world will inevitably take place. But it's important to note, it's not a dark ending, it's a profound reset. The Supreme Father will then take absolutely everyone back to the incorporeal world, the ultimate land of peace and liberation, before the grand cycle begins all over again. And this brilliantly illustrates the ultimate challenge presented by the source text. We are left with a really profound question to ponder. If this physical reality is merely a temporary play coming to an end, are you ready to become soul conscious and cross the bridge? It's a truly fascinating look into a highly structured spiritual theology, leaving us to deeply reflect on the esoteric mechanics of the spiritual cycle we've just unpacked together. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer. Keep seeking that deep understanding, and I'll see you in the next one.